So, welcome. If you look around me, one thing is obvious. This is a well-planned, well-laid out home. This is the home of our guest on Personality Profile on PM Express. I'm talking about Mr. Richard Acquah Harrison. Mr. Acquah Harrison is one of Ghana's foremost planners. He helped plan Accra in the 1950s. He helped plan Accra in 1992. Our guest will take us through the journey of planning and how Accra has become what it is, and the anger he has whenever he looks at Accra. My name is Malik Abbas Dabo, and our guest on Personality Profile on PM Express is Mr. Richard Acquah Harrison. You're welcome back. Today on Personality Profile on PM Express, we are honored to have one of Ghana's foremost planners. I'm talking about Mr. Richard Acquah Harrison. Mr. Acquah Harrison, welcome to Personality Profile on PM Express. And thank you for accepting us into your well-organized home.
You're welcome.
You are recognized as one of Ghana's foremost planners. Tonight we want to talk about your life. How did it all start? Where were you born?
I was born in Winneba, in the central region, but I don't hail from there.
You don't hail from there, but you were born there?
Yes.
Where do you hail from?
I hail from Abazi.
Abazi.
Yes, Abazi.
Which part of Ghana is
Oh,
that?
it's a few miles from Cape Coast.
Still in the central region?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How was growing up like? How was home like?
Home was a simple home. My parents were very, very church people, and my father was with the Kumasi City Council. In those days, it was called the Kumasi Public Health Board, and he was an organist, and also he was a lay preacher, church leader. My mother was a Bible class leader, and but minded the house and did all kinds of things to support my father.
So home was basically religion?
Home was basically religion, and also home was work. Because even though my mother had 3 maidservants, when they went to the public standpipe to fetch water, I also went with them.
So you're talking about public standpipe. There was no running water.
There was no running water at home. In those days, no. In those days, very few people would have running water at home.
And we're talking about the 30s and 40s.
We're talking the 30s and 40s and all that. So I had to go out and fetch 2 gallons of kerosene gallon before I went to school.
There was no electricity.
And I went, there was. And I went with the interesting thing was that I went with the maidservants, and I grew up saying that I wish I had asked my mother that question, why we went together, why her children went together with the maidservants to fetch water. No, to fetch water on our heads.
But you never asked that question.
I wish I had asked before he died at the age of 101. I wish I had asked her, because she would have given me some philosophical answer, which I missed to today, because I knew there was something about training. She wanted to train us, and didn't want to distinguish between so-called maidservants and her own children.
So there were 3 maidservants in the house, and yet her own children joined the maidservants to do
He made us go and fetch water as well.
So you went to school in Winneba?
No, I went to school. I started school in Kumasi.
And which school is this?
Kumasi Methodist School.
So that's where you had your primary education?
That's where I had the primary education. That's where I went to senior school. And then that's where I also went from there to Prempeh College.
Okay, so let's talk about life in Prempeh College. Did you have a nickname in school?
I was called Bing Crosby.
Bing Crosby. Why?
or Harry,
Why were you called Bing Crosby?
because they said I sang like him.
So you sang.
I sounded like him when I sang. Yeah.
So how was school, secondary school like, Prempeh College?
It was a very exciting moment because we were the second set of the pioneers, and Prempeh College was established as the first secondary boarding school in Ashanti. And it was named after, of course, Asante Hene. And it was very interesting because all the Ashanti boys who had not had a chance to go to secondary school came. Some were starting at the age of 24. And as a matter of fact, one of my classmates already had a child.
So you sat in class with somebody who had a child?
Oh yes, because there were the 14-year-olds were there, and also the 23-year-olds were there, all coming to take advantage of the first school in Ashanti Mine. So it was a very interesting pioneering years.
How old were you at the time?
I think I would have been about 17 following the Standard 7, because we finished Standard 7 before we went to secondary school. But then, before that, they changed the system, so people were coming at the age of 13 plus, or 13. Okay. So in my year, some of us were 17, some were kids, 13 years old.
And some were fathers.
And they were, yes.
What did secondary school do for you? What would you say it did for you, Prempeh College?
Prempeh College was, as you know, Prempeh College was founded by the Presbyterian, the Methodists and the Presbyterians, and the first headmaster was Reverend Pearson, and therefore Prempeh College was discipline, religion, and studies, and sports. In fact, so in all those branches, Prempeh College was supposed to excel. In sports, 3 of our schoolmates played Asante Kotoko while they were still in school.
Wow.
Yes.
Did you participate in any sporting activities yourself?
Hockey I did. I played the hockey team. And when I left school, I also played for Kumasi 11. And then I also played for the Ghana 22, when they were selecting 11 to go and play with Nigeria.
Wow.
I was in that 22 group.
Looking at how fit you are at 82, do you still undertake any physical activity, any sporting activities even at your age?
Just walking.
Just
I go for walks. Yeah.
So let's go back to Prempeh College. So you're done with Prempeh College. I want us to talk about what you did after Prempeh College, but I want you to tell me something what was the most memorable moment for you in that school?
The most memorable thing for me in the school, I don't want to go into that because it was one of punishment. No, it was a royal jester. The school performed the royal jester, which was so good that we had to go and perform it at Prempeh Assembly Hall in Kumasi. And I played the lead role. I was a royal jester, because the royal jester had to sing lots of songs. So that was the first time, I think that was the first time a secondary school had undertaken a serious operetta, which was good enough to feature in the public assembly hall. So we did it at Prempeh College, and we also did it at Prempeh Assembly Hall in Kumasi.
And you played the lead role?
I played the lead role in that, and that was a very memorable. In fact, some people today, when I meet my old friends, they always mention
that performance.
That performance, yes.
So from secondary school, where else did you go?
I went straight into the town planning department as a trainee.
How did that come about? How did the decision to be a town planner come about?
I saw an advertisement in the Daily Graphic that they are looking for 4 students who have just left secondary school to train in the department as planners, and those who did well will be sent to be given scholarships to go to Britain to study. And so I went, and I happened to have been fortunate to have been selected to be in the 4 people who were selected in the whole country.
Was it always an area of interest for you, town planning?
It was an area of interest because when I was in elementary school, in those days, elementary school went past today JSS. One of the books that we were made to read was called Housing in the Tropics. It was an illustrated book, I think written by Jane Drew or something. And I became interested in housing and the way the houses were arranged and all that. So when I saw town planning, I immediately told my father I wanted to do that.
So, and he didn't have any protest at all?
Oh, no.
So you got this job as a trainee,
yes.
And then you started. Then what followed?
Then I took a course in economics at University of Science and Technology. It was not Kwame Nkrumah then. University of Science and Technology, and then
it was then the Kumasi College of
College of Technology. And it was part of the sandwich course we were taking in the department. And then after that, I did the Royal Town Planning Institute Professional Exam Part 1, Intermediate Part 1. And then when I passed, I went further to Britain.
So you went to Britain and you pursued further education, still in planning?
Yes.
And then you did a thesis which was selected as one of the best. And this was the Krobo region of Ghana.
Yes.
Why did you choose that?
Because prior to going to Britain, they were doing the Volta River exercises, and the Town and Country Planning Department was involved in a lot of surveys. So we were sent to the Krobo region. We went to Odumasi Krobo for 3 months, and we were involved in the land use surveys and all that, which was happening. So I became quite fascinated about the Huza system.
The what?
H-U-Z-A, Huza.
Huza.
Huza farming system, which the Krobos have. And they have the long farm plots, and on each one they have their house, and then they have the farm itself, and there is a river at the end there, and the farmer would have maybe 6 of those tracts for the other members of the family. It's a very fascinating farming system, so that got me quite interested. So when I went over and I was to choose a thesis subject, I chose that one.
What was unique about it to the extent that the university selected it as one of the best theses?
That I can't say because that one I can't say why, but all I know is that it was, I was also using it as an argument, as an argument for regional planning. Because when I was leaving, there was no regional planning, there was only town planning.
In Ghana at the time?
In Ghana at the time, and then I had gone to do what is called town and country planning. And town and country planning is another way of saying urban and regional planning. So when I went, I saw the chance that, well, because that Huza farming system, and it extends over a large tract of land, so it was just an argument. So I guess they found the argument I was making as a basis for regional planning. They found it, I guess they found it quite good. I don't know, but they
so
just
after
chose
this one, you came back to Ghana?
Yes.
And then what? So you had
Well, I
went
straight into the town and country planning department, and my generation took over from the whites.
And this was, at that time, Ghana had gained independence?
Oh, yes.
Now an independent
but the whites
country.
were still around.
They were still around?
Yes, the British planning officers were still around.
You were in this department from 64 to 66
yes.
when the coup occurred?
Yes.
Was that the reason you left the department?
Oh, no. No. Each time I mention this, I left in December 66. The coup was in February.
February 24th.
Yes. No, I left for an entirely different reason, and I didn't intend to leave, but I left in protest.
Protest over what?
Oh, I don't think I want to go into that. It had nothing to do with the politics of the time. It had to do with just the inside the department. I wanted leave of absence without pay for 1 year. And I waited a long time. For 6 months, I was writing reminders. And then finally, 2 weeks to the time I was supposed to leave, I got a response that nobody could replace me. There was not enough staff to come and replace me, and therefore I should take 2 weeks leave. And I really got quite upset about that. So 2 weeks. If I had been told that within a month's time, fine. But after I had waited and made my plans and everything,
you were told you were irreplaceable at the time.
And I knew I was not.
Okay, I want us to take a break at this point. When we come back, I do know that you worked at the time Kwame Nkrumah was president. I want to find out from Mr. Acquah Harrison whether he had any personal interaction with the president, Africa's showboy at the time. You're watching Personality Profile on PM Express. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Personality Profile on PM Express, and our guest today is Mr. Richard Acquah Harrison, a foremost planner. Before we went on the break, I was talking about relationship with then President Kwame Nkrumah. We do know that he was a stickler when it comes to planning. Did you have at any point in your work, have any personal interactions with him?
No way. Only people like SKB Asante went that far, were that close. No, I did not. But the only thing I would say is that the very second plan for Accra, the Accra Plan 1958, was signed by Nkrumah, and my name is in the book, is in the plan.
Accra Plan 1958.
Yes, that's the only thing. That's the only relationship I can talk about. The President Nkrumah signed it, and the names of the staff, the people involved in the planning are there, and my little name was there.
How seriously did government at the time take planning?
Nkrumah took planning very, very seriously. As a matter of fact, sometimes I claim that since 1966, there has not been any government that has been so dedicated as Nkrumah when it comes to planning. Because as a matter of fact, there was a time when even town and county planning was a ministry.
Wow.
Oh yes, housing and town and county planning ministry in Nkrumah's time. And also, there was a time when, during his time, the town and county planning department led all the technical services department. When they met PWD architects, engineers, you name them, planning led them in quite a number of things. So it was also that time that they did the Volta River resettlement studies and surveys. And so planning was also well funded. And so many things planning did at the time which is not done today. Planning had a budget for compensating people. It's a thing of the past. You know,
and you're talking about people who had been resettled, or
people who have been resettled, or houses. The Presbyterian Church, there was an old Presbyterian church opposite Barclays Bank, adjacent Barclays Bank, and next to what is now, and close to the post office.
Okay.
Now, at the time when we were preparing the plan, this was the second plan. This was made into a square to create the post office square, and it was to be a car park. So town planning department paid compensation to the Presbyterian Church for that little church building there to be relocated. So this is what is now at Rawlins's Park next to Methodist Book Depot.
Wow.
Called Ascension. I think it's called Ascension.
Yes, I know
Ascension Presbyterian Church or something. I don't think even the church people today know the history. But town planning paid as a compensation for that building to be built
be relocated
to be relocated there.
from the post office area.
Yes, so the planning had money to do all those things. In fact, one of the first exercises, not one of the first exercise I did when I returned from university was the recreational plan for the Koli Lagoon area.
So there was a recreational plan
Yes,
for the Koli Lagoon.
I did that, and at that time, Nedico engineers from Holland were dredging the Koli, the first dredging exercise. And the whole idea was to have a whole recreational area there. So, and all that was, money was made available to the planning department to do that. It was well funded. So he was very much into that. Anyway.
So you did this plan, but the plan was never implemented.
No, it was implemented. The plan of 1958 was implemented. As a matter of fact, the plan of 1958 brought about the graphic road.
Okay.
It wasn't
the
there.
Famous graphic road.
Yes, it wasn't there.
Obechebi Lamti Circle.
It wasn't there. Okay. The Obashanjo Avenue was not there. There was a track going from 37 down to the subway in Jolu. Just a little track. But that road all the way to join the motorway. The motorway wasn't there. It was brought about by the 1958 plan. The road that bypasses City House was not there. It brought about a design, which design brought in Kingsway stores and all those other areas. So many places were not there, which the 58 plan brought into. No, it was implemented.
So after that, I imagine we had a series of other plans after the 58 one, or there was no planning at all?
There was for Accra, you mean, for the capital,
yes,
there was a plan. There was a plan of 1992. That was the one which was not implemented.
So how is it that from 58, we didn't do any serious plan until 92?
It's difficult for me to answer, but I wasn't here. I left in December 66, but I know that it just has to be, perhaps it was because of the constant changes in government. I don't know, I'm guessing. Perhaps it was because there was constant changes in government. And also even the 92 plan, I don't know what to say.
So you left Ghana in December 66, and you went out there. You worked in Angola, you worked in Canada, you worked in Namibia, you worked in Kenya, you worked in all these African countries. When you came back home and saw Accra, would you say you were disappointed or angry at what you saw?
I'm still angry. And I get very angry when people say there's no plan for Accra. I hear it said all the time. There is a plan for Accra. Plans do not implement themselves. But there is a plan for Accra. And it is unfair to say there is no plan for Accra because Jolu did not exist. We planned it. Abelempe did not exist. We planned it. Nkrumah motorway didn't exist. We planned it. And even when they were passing the motorway through, it affected part of Achimota Forest. And part of Achimota Forest came on the south side of the motorway. So it became a useless piece of land. And that was what was turned into a nice residential area, Abelempe residential area. Lincoln Community School is there. North Ridge did not exist. The ridge existed, but not North Ridge. there are lots of places which I get angry a little bit because we protected the integrity of planning. If a place was designated as open space, we kept it. But then I came to find that
no encroachment was allowed.
I came to find that the whole of Odoko, a lot of Odoko was not to be like that. Odoko, the land is lying below the road. If you're on the motorway, if you're on George Bush Road, it's down. And it's an area liable to flooding. So we reserved in the 1958 plan as Greenland. You know, I found that the Latter-day Saints had changed everything, subdivided into plots, and people had built there. Even part of Achimota Forest, people built there. If you come in from Joe, traffic lights, the new hotel at the traffic light.
Fiesta Royal.
Fiesta Royal. When you enter Fiesta Royal, go into Legon. On the left-hand side, there's a whole housing area there, which was illegal. It's been built on, but it was part of Achimota Forest. I can go on and on and on, but no, so they have not, they implemented a lot of Acquah, but most of the recreational areas, open spaces, are not there now.
This is a problem of Africa, isn't it? I'm sure that in some of the countries you worked in, Nairobi and Mombasa and Dar es Salaam.
You will not find this, you will not find it to the same degree in other African countries, not in Namibia, and not in Zimbabwe, and not in Malawi. If it's in Zimbabwe, maybe it's now. Not in Malawi. If it's in Malawi, maybe it's now that President Banda is not there. But nobody could build anywhere without a building permit. Not in Banda's Malawi. Never. Never.
What is it about us that makes us so predisposed to allowing these things to go on?
There's an awful lot of pressures on the planning officers in this country, and there's a lot of interference in the planning process. I won't name them, but there are some important public buildings which do not even have permits, big private buildings which do not have a building permit. And then you also have even public buildings which have been built without car parks. Snake Hospital in Osu has no car park. It wouldn't happen my time. Snake Hospital doesn't have a car park. The Ghana Commercial Bank building at Circle, the tall building, doesn't have a car park. Doesn't have a car park. They were hoping to have bought Goyle for parking.
The bent. The Goyle that got bent
yes. They were hoping to have
on June 3rd.
Yes. It was built without car park. And also lots of other things. There are pressures on, and sometimes I know cases where mayors have ordered that something should be built.
In flagrant disregard for
the planning officer will say, that, sir, this is such and such, doesn't have enough land on it, or enough, the zoning is not correct, and orders have been given that. I can count only 7 planners that I can think about who have professional integrity and will say to anybody that, sir, this is not the right way to do it. I had a colleague who would do that. I used to do that myself. And he would say, sir, this is not because I wasn't here when things... And if the politician gave an order that it should be done, he goes to his office and he writes a memo to file. and copy to the boss.
Wow.
Oh yes, that following the meeting, it was agreed that you directed that this should be done. And he puts it on his file. And then they didn't bother him because they knew that Rollins was very fond of this particular person. May his soul rest in peace. He passed away. He was very fond of because he was very boldly speaking.
He stood.
Oh no, yeah.
His ground.
Yes. He would just say it.
Are there times when you go out in Accra and you do not want to look at the city because the more you look at the city, the angrier you get?
I was talking to one of, he's much younger. Maybe I'm 20 years older than him. He retired a few years ago. I was talking to him recently. He was in charge of planning in Kumasi, and he said to me, Chief, he says he is so bad that these days when he goes to Kumasi, and he's an Ashanti man, he says, I close my eyes because it's troublesome, it's burden. I grew up at KJT in Kumasi when it was called the Garden City. And the last time I was in Kumasi, I felt the same way. It's all messed up.
You think calling Kumasi the Garden City now is a misnomer?
Oh yes, oh yeah, oh no, it's a misnomer. No. It is a misnomer. Garden City, when you had Prince of Wales Park, behind KJT Alori Park, beautiful grounds for football, for recreation, and for Empire Day. So it's all gone now. And they have built everywhere.
And that's the case in Accra as well.
It is a case in Accra as well, building everywhere. Something I was going to say, and I didn't say it because it's like I'm blowing my horn. You said to me, why is it that since 58, nothing has been done nothing was done until 92. And I was smiling, and I told you, I said, don't go there. Because even that which happened in 92, the man that I said has passed away, may he rest in peace, is the one who was so concerned. I came on leave, I was then with the UN, and he said to me, Chief, Accra is in a mess, and can you do something? So I got him to give me a little bit of write-up, and I wrote to the United Nations headquarters in Nairobi to send a mission here, requested them to send a mission here to see about doing a plan for Accra. I was then serving in Malawi myself. So they agreed.
Under the UN?
Yes. So they agreed, and they requested the Malawi government to release me to come and do the project profile. So I came to prepare the project profile, which led to the preparation of the 1992 plan.
I want us to take a break at this point. When we come back, Mr. Acquah Harrison will tell us how this 92 plan was done, the effort he made personally, and whether he's hurt that the plan was not implemented. You're watching Personality Profile on PM Express. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. You're watching Personality Profile on PM Express. Now, our guest is Mr. Richard Acquah Harrison, who has a pretty wife, whom he will be telling us about. Mr. Acquah Harrison, before we went through the break, we were talking about how unplanned our cities have become. But one of the biggest problems facing our cities now is traffic. You were talking about a friend who goes to Kumasi and doesn't want to look at the city because it's become a jumble of ramshackle buildings. Our streets have become a jumble of automobile vehicles. When you go into town and look at the traffic on the streets of Accra, how does that hit you?
You see, the whole problem with traffic, I'm afraid the people involved with roads and traffic management have not gotten to the real essence of it yet. Land use generates traffic. The use of land generates traffic, and traffic generates land use. It's like the chicken and the egg, which came first kind of thing. But
That's
land
a very
use...
complicated explanation.
Yes.
Break it down for us.
Okay. You have uses of land. If you build a church, it will attract lots of people to that place. So that church building has to have adequate car parking. There's a church building next to Osu Cemetery, which doesn't have a car park. That's where Reverend Ano used to be. I know that. Is it Ano? Anyway, next to Osu Cemetery, there's a church there. It doesn't have a car park. So that church, it's called land use. It's a use of land. That land has been used for a church. And because it is a church, it generates traffic, right? Calvary Methodist Church, opposite the museum. It generates traffic. Yes. Government ministries, they generate traffic. Makola Market generates traffic. But I'm talking about the use of land. And this is all has to do with planning. But I'm afraid the roads in Accra, they build roads in Accra, they widen roads in Accra, as if the roads are not part and parcel of the urban land use structure. And unless they can integrate land use planning and transportation planning, they will never solve the problem.
Are we in a hopeless situation in terms of planning?
It is not hopeless if the necessary funds will be made available and the necessary expertise will be brought together to undo. It's called damage control. You can always undo it.
Do you see that happening in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
It depends on government action, and it depends on the necessary budgets being provided for the planners to be. Also, secondly, I'm afraid, let's say the towns of Ghana most of the towns of Ghana are fully built. Planners are no longer busy with so-called layouts. So what are planners supposed to do? Planners themselves, their work is reduced to layout and issuing building permits. Planning is a lot more than that. But they have been forced into that situation because the things that planning has to do, they cannot do because of the budgetary requirement.
You were talking about in the 92 plan, how you came back to Ghana and you were working for the UN at the time. We do know that you were a senior human settlements advisor. This was in Nairobi. You became chief technical advisor. This was also in Malawi. You were chief technical advisor in the Dominica. You were in UN all this while. Is it the case that this is a prophet who is not regarded in his own home? Walk us through the things that you did for the UN. So many of them.
Well, we handled a low-income housing project, which was very successful in Namibia, which was one of my own projects, and in Malawi. And the one in Namibia was so successful that when Mandela had his 1 million housing project, I was engaged to go and review that. I was on the team that went to review the 1 million housing project.
In South Africa?
In South Africa because of the Namibia project I handled. So I have been here, and every government that comes into power, I submit a short paper about low-income housing. I speak passionately about that. Again, since in Nkrumah's time, no government has come that has had a scheme to do with low-income housing. Not to the same way Nkrumah did it. So I have been a bit disappointed because I say to myself, hey, people came in SWAPO. They were hiding and fighting the South Africans. And then they came back home. When they defeated them, they came back home with bare hands, no money. And within 2 years, they were living in their own homes. And then Malawi, the house that grows, the same thing. Everybody, every taxi driver, every sweeper can have his own home.
How does this work?
It is too long to go into it here, but there is a method for it. And when I have tried over the years to, and by the way, I was not looking for consultancy assignments. It's just a paper, I give it as an idea. So I was not looking. I remember one particular government in power that came. I went to see the Minister for Housing. And he says, yes, what can I do for you? And I said, no, I didn't come for a consultancy. I just want to push low-income housing. So that's, no, it's a wide area. I don't think I want to go because I'll be giving a lecture on that. And your program is...
Okay. I'm talking about all these things that you did
Yes.
for the UN. You were in the thick of things. You were schooling, you were planning, and yet you find the time to find a very pretty woman. Tell us about her, how you met her, Mrs. Acquah Harrison.
It's a long story. You're asking me to tell you about a book. So all I will say is that if you go to Google, if you go to Amazon, you see there.
So it was that story that is documented in
I wrote a book about it,
Over
yes,
a Distance.
yes.
And by the way, Mr. Acquah Harrison is, in spite of all these things that he does, he's a writer. He writes books. In fact, one of these books, Love Over a Distance, is on Amazon.com. You can buy it. Tell us a gist of the story. We are interested.
Oh, in that book, I describe myself as Kofi Aban. And Kofi Aban met this Bermudian lady, and then at a Christian conference, and Kofi Aban left shortly and came to Ghana, and then was deeply in love with this Bermudian woman, but the Bermudian woman had no idea that Kofi Aban was even interested. So Kofi Aban started wooing her over the distance, and it was painful wooing over the distance, 18 months before she finally said no. So it has to do with how all that happened. I have a cousin who told me he hasn't read the book because he knows the story, and yet when he started reading it, he told me he couldn't put it down. He who said he knew the story told me he couldn't put it down. So it's actually there. It's Love Over the Distance. So that's how I wrote it. But it was a very difficult decision for her to make as well. That's why.
But she made it.
Oh, but finally.
What did you say that got her to accept in spite of this distance?
That's exactly what her mother asked me. That's exactly what her mother said to me when she came for the wedding in Kumasi. She said, Richard, me boy, I don't know what you did to get Miri, but whatever you did must have been something. It's it's a matter of, it was an act of faith. On the serious basis, yes, it was an act of faith. It was, and sheer determination. And my best man, Professor Wright was my best man, and he said to me, Richard, congratulations, I would have given up. Yes.
You didn't give up?
I didn't give up.
And he paid?
Oh, yes.
You have 2 sons. Where are they?
One is here, one is in Canada. Yeah.
Are they into planning as well?
Oh, they didn't get into planning, but they got into my wife's hobby. My wife is an organist, pipe organist and pianist, and they also got into my hobby. I myself, I'm into music, so they are both musicians.
Wow. They both sing.
No, they play.
They play,
Well,
okay.
one sings
Okay.
and is a multi-instrumentalist.
Do you still play?
No, I never played, I sang.
You sang.
I used to play. And when I married her, I gave up. I wouldn't go.
Did you sing to her, especially when you quarreled?
Is it chorale or quarrel?
Quarreled.
No, no, I don't sing.
So you never sang to her? This beautiful, melodious voice that you sang in Kumasi and you became famous for it, you never
You
sang?
probably hear me sing in the bathroom, but that would be a different But not consciously going and singing. No.
Do you want to give us a tune?
I don't know. Oh, no. No. I made it 2 years old. And
82.
And you need...
You don't look it.
Your rib cage is all part of singing. And your diaphragm is all part of singing. You need stamina. So even if you sing sotto voce, soft voice, you still can't sing the way... I was training a young man. I trained people to sing. And I trained a guy who became a very good tenor. One day, he left my studio. And what he was singing, I hit the key myself and I tried to sing it because I used to sing it on Radio Ghana, on Chroma's time.
Wow.
And then I sang the first 8 bars and I stopped and I laughed at myself because I couldn't sing it the way he was singing it. But I used to sing it better than him. So it's no.
I mean, all credit to you at 82. When we walked into the house and I saw you, is this the 82-year-old man? All credit. I think that credit should go to her. Don't you agree?
She's part of it. And God is part of it. And perhaps my mother's genes, because she died at 101.
At this point, do you still play tennis?
No, I never played tennis. It's hockey I used to play.
Sorry.
No. Hockey is a very difficult game to play even after you hit 50. Because you have to bend down. You have to tackle the ball in a very uncomfortable position.
Do you follow international hockey?
No. I must say that I've lost interest I've lost my interest in hockey. But I played for university team, Durham University hockey team. I played for King's College hockey team when I went there. And that was the last time. Oh, then I came back and I played for Acquah hockey team maybe once.
Apart from Love Over the Distance, what other books and papers do you write that we should know about? And as I said, I found Love Over the Distance on Amazon.com.
I usually, the papers I write are usually about planning, and you talking about, I've written about traffic, I've written about housing, I have written about street hawkers, I have written about transportation and land use, as opposed to just writing about traffic. I've written about transportation and land use. And also, I have a book that I'm hoping to write, putting all my articles together into a book.
If you're at this age, you're still right.
Yeah, I do. I'm still writing. I'm writing. I just finished writing about Acquah, the late Acquah, and Professor Edi Ayinsu did the pictures, the photographs of his artworks. And I'm writing about...
Why is his story, let's do Sakako, why is his story worth writing?
Oh, because he's such an amazing man. Acquah was an African Renaissance man. The man was into the visual and performing arts and all kinds of other areas. So it's the book is it's finished. The book is finished, and we're hoping to submit it to some publisher early next year.
When you are not writing, what do you do in your leisure time?
In my leisure time, when I'm not writing, I'm very much involved with the music ministry chorale, which I'm a co-founder. With my wife and a young man called Victor Manison, we founded the music ministry chorale. So that takes a lot of my time.
You played last year and the year before. Are you playing this year? I think last year was it in December?
Last year, December.
British Council.
Yes, we did. Who told you that? Yeah, we did. This year, we got busy this Christmas. We, at the opening of, at the rebranding of Capital Plus Bank.
Okay.
Recently.
Okay.
We were there performing, and then we are performing at the State House for Bank of Ghana, and on the 18th, and then we are performing for the Methodist Church
headquarters. On the 18th
yes, this month at the State House. And Christmas is usually our busiest month, but we do our own performances. In other words, we book a place and do our own performance.
So you went to do planning, but you still took Daddy's part of Daddy's business, and you are holding that as well.
Mm-hmm. It comes in the territory, it seems, because
how is that going?
Which one?
The performance. I read a lady who praised you to the high heavens at the British Council performance last year.
Oh. Yeah, people always say to us, where have you people been hiding? Every time we perform, somebody always comes to me to say, where have you people been hiding? But we're not hiding. It's just that it's a very serious music ministry. And we're not in competition with anybody. We just do what we want to do. We're like a jazz band. Jazz musicians, they don't care whether they play to 10 people or to a football stadium full of people. So MMC, we just have very unique repertoire, and we don't usually sing just the danceable things or classical. We have quite an eclectic repertoire.
She praised you for discipline in terms of the performance. She praised you for discipline and organization. For me, that is not surprising because as a planner, organization is the thing. Do you think we are very disciplined people, Ghanaians?
Oh, you get my head on the block. No, it's, well, but everybody is complaining about indiscipline in this society. Newspapers are talking about it. Everybody is talking about it. So it's not me. If I say, it's not as if Ghanaians have not heard it being said that there's a lot of indiscipline in the society. Look, Wesley College, it saddened me yesterday in the Daily Graphic. Wesley College, of all colleges in this country, they don't like something, some policy brought in by the senior staff. So they went and threw feces all over the classroom.
Shit bombed the classroom.
Yes. So you talk about indiscipline, that is it right there. And when I saw it, I said to myself, I think they should all be fired. They are not fit to go and teach anybody's child with that kind of behavior. They're behaving like not even bush people. Bush people wouldn't even do that. So it's a serious thing in the country, and The churches are not talking about it. And also the nation is not talking about it. There's too much talk about politics in this country when we have these things going on. And we should be talking about those things as well. We should spend our energies talking about the indiscipline in the society.
Why do you think the churches don't talk about it?
I don't know. It's a book. It's another book I'm writing. It's called The Frog in the Pot. Reflections, my reflections on the church. And in that book, when I finish, I've started it. I hope to finish it next year. In that book, when I finish, the answer will be in there as to
The frog
in the pot. My reflections on the church.
Wow. And our time is up. It's been great having you. But before we go, I saw some farm in the house. So you're keeping a farm in the house?
Garden.
Okay, well, I come
Vegetable
from a village.
garden.
I come from a village. I don't know about gardens. I know about farms. So
Vegetable garden, yeah.
So you have a vegetable garden in
Yes.
the house. How did you come to that?
Well, as a planner, I also did landscape design. So planner, landscape garden, gardens, open spaces, it's part of me. So if I have a house and I have enough land there, it comes automatically that I should have some flowers and some vegetables, so forth and so on. So it comes naturally with me.
Mr. Acquah Harrison, thank you. Thank you. And we'll be looking forward to the book, A Frog in the Pot, Mr. Acquah Harrison's Reflections. Thank you very much indeed. So that's the discussion. Mr. Richard Acquah Harrison, foremost planner. We're honored to have him. God willing, next week we will bring you another sizzling discussion on PM Express. Until then, keep safe.